What have been the major fiscal mistakes of state governments since Byrne left office?
Well, this is another 4 hours, but I'll give you a quick run-through. Sometime after we left office, the state needed money, or they thought they needed money. We're still in a recession. They cut corporate taxes. They wanted to increase welfare payments, which was fine, and they needed money. They exaggerated how much they needed, but that's what you do. The Governor Kane wanted a sales tax increase. The Democrats in the legislature wanted an income tax increase. There was a battle over it, and it was one of those things where they said, we won't give you a sales tax unless you also take an income tax. Like, don't throw me in the briar patch, so in politics. So Kane got both, and the recession ended. So he had a lot of money. That's a bigger problem in some ways than having too little money, because you can't say no to people, and you build in expenses that keep growing. By the end of his second term, he was out of money. And the state, Florio inherited a deficit in the current year that he became governor, which had never happened before. And
Kane didn't inherit a deficit from Byrne?
No, we left a $130 million surplus, which in those days was significant. I mean, the budget might have been $5 billion. But in the following year, they did have a problem. But depends how you looked at it, whether they could have solved that problem simply or not with controlling spending. But anyway, I'm not criticizing what they did, but they wound up with a lot of money, more than they needed. And then it's very difficult to say no to somebody and show a huge surplus and not give money to health care or to hospitals or this or that or employees. And they gave medical benefits in retirement to all the teachers, and the cost of living on the pensions was made an entitlement. So a lot of spending was built in. And then they ended by spending off surplus, and the following year was a huge problem, and that's what hit Florio when he came into office. And then when Florio imposed all the taxes, they weren't enough for the problem. And there was another recession. And then they repealed the sales tax that he increased, and some of the spending, but not all, and they sort of exacerbated the problem that he already had, so that when he left office, there was a problem for Whitman. So when Whitman came in, instead of dealing with that problem, she cut taxes. And she, in 1994, changed the whole pension system around so as to eliminate essentially all the pension contribution, brought it from $1 billion down to almost zero, by deferring the payments to the future and spending off the health care funding that had been accumulated to take care of the retirees' health care. And then introduced spending programs like the school construction thing. It's a valid thing, valuable thing, but $12 billion bond issue requires $1 billion a year of debt service. Someone has to pay that out of something. That wasn't provided, and I mean, there's a whole litany of things that, but basically left the state in very, very, very poor financial condition, so that when McGreevey took over, he had a $6 billion gap in his first budget and a $3 billion deficit in the year that he was taking over, which is impossible. I mean, Florio ended his first year in office with a $1 million surplus in the state, after having cut $590 million of current year contracts. So he was left with a $590 million problem in mid-year, and McGreevey had $3 billion. Plus, the state hadn't put any money into the pension funds since 1994, except for the bond issue they put in. And that kept going until 2003, because the statute in 97 said you don't have to put in any money. So they didn't put any money in, so for 10 years. Now, if they had put in $1 billion a year for 10 years and it was earning money at the rates that you earned during the mid-90s, you wouldn't have these pension problems you have today. But, I mean, this would require hours, but there's a very sorry story here that goes on for 20 years of a situation which right now is, I think, very, very serious.
You think the state's in worse fiscal shape than in your adult lifetime right now?
Yes, right now.
How do you feel about such current proposals as school district and municipal consolidation, new spending caps at the local level?
Well, the consolidation issue I've commented on publicly in the past, and I assume that there are ways to make things more efficient than they are today. But I don't see this as a broad solution to these problems that we have at the local level. I was at a meeting when McGreevey was governor with some professors, and this was being discussed, and I said, well, you know, take a bunch of towns, like let's say in Hudson County, some small towns, and Weehawken and West New York, Gutenberg and all, and add up those towns until they have the same population as Jersey City. And then just let's find out whether those towns or Jersey City operates more efficiently. Do that kind of analysis and see whether you would save money or whether it would cost you money. And that kind of analysis hasn't been done. But I don't think you're going to get towns to combine in any large scale. And I think a lot of the savings you could force more easily by doing the functions better. For example, school transportation was always an issue where people would say, well, if we didn't have to skirt this town, if we could pick up, you know, where one town juts into another town, we could pick up kids from both towns, we could do it, we could save millions of dollars. And if that's true, you don't have to merge the two school districts to accomplish that. You just set up a new system of bus transportation which would allow you to do that. I think that's a diversion, but a popular one that's not going to go away. You know, Alan Karcher wrote that book, and people focus on it, and Whitman had a property tax study commission, and that's what they came out with. But you know, in Princeton we had 4 referenda to merge the 2 Princetons, and they always failed. And I don't think necessarily you'd save money, because if you have 2 towns, let's say with 2 different police forces, they would both be earning what the higher one is earning, not what the lower one is earning. So you'd save 1 chief of police, but you'd have 2 deputy chiefs, and then you'd have everyone making more money than they were before. So
spending caps.
Well, we had spending caps in the Byrne program. They weren't caps on the levy. They were caps on the spending, and it was tied to inflation. And we found out it was a problem with the bond market, first of all, because they felt you could, you know, if you had an artificial statutory impediment to someone paying their debt service, this was a problem. So we exempted that. And I don't know. I guess over the years people feel it hasn't really worked, but I don't see how you could make it work much better. And the problem is what people spend money on is what people want, you know. And I do work for some cities now and as a financial consultant, and you know, the cities basically provide a police force and a fire department and public works, and they pick up garbage and fix the sewers. And I mean, they don't do a lot of frills. They don't have a lot of people not working.